Hello, hello, happy live. Thank you for popping in. I apologize I was not around last week. I was away in about 110 Fahrenheit of weather, and now I'm back in the chilly cold, hence the more casual look today and kind of bummy attire. Just getting used to the cold weather. But anyways, thank you guys for popping in. I will go over my normal, which is answer your guys' questions, as well as go over some happy news, as well as real estate updates. If you guys have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. Otherwise, I will just blab along on my own. Okay? Again, hopefully you guys are all well and safe, well, healthy, all of the above, anything like that. And we'll start with questions first, okay? So Brock has the first question, and Brock is from Alliston. Brock said, I would love to have a duplex or triplex, but I'm afraid it's a big undertaking for one person. What do you think if I went in on it with my brother or best friend or possibly both? Thank you, Brock, for asking. And again, Brock's from Alliston. So I'm not against people buying with other people. I've seen it happen many times. I've helped many families, many, siblings, etc., best friends, etc. Just make sure you have everything in writing, okay? So go to the lawyers, make sure everything's in writing, because you might say, hey, I want to rent out each unit for $1,500. Your friend says, no, I want to rent out each unit for $1,900. You say, I want to put a steel roof on. Your friend says, no, I want my buddy to do it for X price. And it just gets a lot of people fighting, to be honest. So just have everything in black and white. You're each putting 5% down, or you're each putting 10% down. You each have 50% of the business or what have you, the company, etc. Just make sure it's all black and white. Make sure if one of you were to pass, that is it going to your will or is it going automatically to the other person, etc. Just make sure everything is completely black and white before you buy anything, okay? That is my advice for you. And yeah, I see it happen lots of times, but just make sure you are completely on the same page, because oftentimes you are not, and you don't want it to be too late by the time you realize that. So thank you for asking. Again, we're just going to go over some weekly updates as well, real estate weekly updates, some questions and answers from you guys that have come in, and some happy news. Okay, so I'm going to do some happy news first before we get into real estate. So obviously airlines often get a bad reputation, but this was just a quick little story. There was a girl flying home basically in May from university or college or what have you want to call it in the States, and they wouldn't let her on with her beta fish or whatever you call those little fighter fish. And so one of the flight attendants said that she would, keep it under the desk and keep it for her. And basically the girl flew home, spent the summer with her family, then flew back to go back to school again, and obviously told the flight attendant ahead of time, like, hey, I'm coming back. And they arranged for her to pick up her fish, and the girl that was going to college or university or what have you gave her a gift card and stuff. And obviously just for somebody to randomly keep somebody's fish that they don't even know, there's always bad things that they talk about of airlines, but there's lots of good things that happen as well. And obviously bad things happen to people in the airlines also. That I saw that one, I don't remember what it was, the fellow punched somebody in the head. So anyways, they put up with a lot. So they do lots of nice things as well. The next question comes from Julie, and Julie is in Barrie. Julie said, what are your thoughts on listing exclusively? So thank you, Julie, for asking. So what that means, for those of you who do not know what Julie is asking, exclusively means that you're not dealing with other agents, okay? So let's just say you list with Joe or you list with Margaret, etc. Only Joe or Margaret can bring through people, somebody working with somebody else from, Sutton Group Realty or Keller Williams or Remax or whoever can't show your property, okay? So I personally am not a fan of listing exclusively, because there are over 86,000 realtors in Ontario. So if you are listing exclusively, you're missing out on those, 85,999. It's obviously not 86,000 exact, but I'm just using that as an example. You're just missing out on all those other realtors. And on average, between 92 and 93% of agents, or not agents, of people that buy every year already have an agent. So if you're missing out on that 92 to 93% of buyers, that's obviously not ideal. So I personally don't like exclusive listings, and I would suggest listing regular so other agents can show your property as well, not just that one, okay? But I get the draw of it, because sometimes they say, oh, we'll do it for 0.5% or something crazy. But meanwhile, you're missing out on the 86,000 plus agents that have certain buyers that are willing to pay more money, okay? So hi, Justin. Thank you for popping in. Hi, I can't see who that is. Devin and Mark and Chris, and I believe that's Becky. Thank you guys for popping in. Okay, so thank you for asking, Julie. So next thing is just a little bit of happy news. So one fellow was not off to the greatest of start. It wasn't happy news at the beginning. He was born 10 weeks early, And at 11 months, he was diagnosed with, I have to look because I never heard of this before, spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. So there's different types of cerebral palsy, and he has spastic quadriplegic, which basically limits his limbs either to no use at all or very minimal use. So he's been in a wheelchair his whole life. He was born in 2003, and basically his mom was worried, like, hey, I know he's a smart guy and whatever, but I'm afraid once he graduates high school, he won't ever get a job. So she started to think of, like, hey, maybe he can get his own business started, etc. And he does have a Shih Tzu cross puppy and loves baking. So she thought, why don't we cook some dog biscuits, etc. So they ended up starting this little dog biscuit company, dog treats, etc. And fast forward 4 years later, which is now, they now are sold in over 21 different stores, and he even has his own little store, and his own little store also sells teas and candles and t-shirts. So I just thought that was really cute. He's also going to university, and after he has 2 more years left of university, then he says he wants to try and franchise the business. So regardless of what, hand you're dealt, I just like that he's going for it. So I really like that. Next, I'm going to jump back to questions. Next question comes from Shirley and Bill, and they are in Guilford. So Shirley and Bill said, we want to sell and move east, but have heard how much prices are down. How do we know what to believe and what not to believe? Thank you, Shirley and Bill, for asking. I'll go over some real estate stuff in a little bit, not too long, in probably a minute and a half, as well as I've gone over them in the past. If you want to look on our Cripps Realty page and watch some previous videos, or feel free to reach out to myself. You can call the office at 705-726-7000. Again, 705-726-7000. But just make sure you're getting the whole picture, so it doesn't have to be calling me. So let's just say normally, obviously, they call it clickbait, right? Like doom or gloom. People will read like something's down 53%, something's down 37%, whatever. And that's fine, and I'm sure it was down that amount, but that's it's always that I've come across, obviously, in my time in real estate, the amount of homes selling, not the actual sales price. And then, like in little fine print, it'll be like, the sales prices are up 12.7%, but the number of homes sold is down, but they just like to scare people with that. So just make sure you know everything before you're thinking doom or gloom, okay? So they are thinking that there's going to be a continued adjustment. There has already been an adjustment since spring of this year. And they are thinking there's going to be a continued adjustment just because of the interest rates. So waiting till next year, for example, probably is not going to get you more money. So I would suggest selling before then. Okay. Thank you, Shirley and Bill, for asking. So one more story before we do real estate. Okay. So normally, obviously, people like seeing their Amazon drivers. Justin, do you like seeing your Amazon driver? One family liked seeing an Amazon driver for different reasons. Maybe he wasn't even their Amazon driver, but basically on a Saturday afternoon, an Amazon driver was coming home from his last parcel drop-off, and he saw a home that was on fire. It had just started, like it was a small fire, but it was growing quickly. And he basically ran to the front door, it was open, he ran inside, he found 6 people and said, like, your house is on fire, you have to leave. He realized they did not speak English, so he had to try and get them outside without seeming like a crazy person or an abductor or a robber or anything like that. And eventually he got them all out the back door, came around to the front. By that point, their house is engulfed in flames, and majority of them started to cry because they realized what could have happened if they stayed inside. So I like happy stories. So I like that. Obviously, there was a language barrier, but everybody was safe in the end. There were 4 children and 2 adults that were saved by a random Amazon driver. And yes, Justin said he likes his Amazon driver. So jumping now into real estate. Again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Otherwise, I will just ramble along. So there was a recent study, and 44% of Canadians said they have put buying on hold, okay? So 44% said they put buying on hold right now due to interest rates, and 22 out of the 30 polled brokers. So they polled the public, but then they polled brokers, okay? So people that own real estate agencies, etc. There were 30 that they polled, and 22 out of 30 of them said they have seen an effect in demand in their area due to, oh, sorry, I'm getting a call. I have to press ignore to that person. Due to they're assuming the interest rates, but they did say that they have noticed a different change in their market and lack of demand. And as you know, or possibly know, the Bank of Canada's rate is now 3.25, and most set rates are around 5.45, which means that people have to get approved at around 7 or 7.5% because they have to get a rate approved at that 2% higher. So obviously people's debt to service ratio trying to get approved at 7.5% is a lot harder than getting approved at, 5 or 3 or whatever. So because most people's, if they want to go for a fixed rate, it's about 5.45% right now. And the stress test adds that 2%. So 7.45, etc. So your debt to service ratio means how much money you make versus how much money you spend. Do you make $100,000 and spend $90,000, or do you make $100,000 and spend $23,000? Do you know what I mean? So that's checking your debt to service ratio. So they're going to do all of that and check your bills based off of that higher 7.45%, just in case the interest rates were to go up. So that is why a lot of people are saying they're putting it on hold, because their debt to service ratio might not make sense with that extra 2%. Okay. So just as a side note, banks are going to look at your debt to service ratio. They're also going to look at your, I can't even think of what the heck is that thing called? Your rate. If you're like your score, your credit score. I was having a brain fart. Your credit score. So if your credit score is like 830, is it 750? Is it 490, etc.? They're going to look at that, as well as your job. So do you jump around a lot? You were a painter, then you were a mortgage broker, then you were a teacher, then you were in consulting, then you worked at the mall, etc. Do you jump around tons, or do you stay at one job for like 20 years? They obviously like when you stay at one job for 20 years more so than jumping around. And they also prefer somebody to have a set income than be self-employed, just because self-employed people, they don't tend to know, are you going to, let's just say you sell docks for the water, are you going to sell one dock next year or 500 docks? They don't know. So they do prefer somebody like a teacher, a firefighter, etc., that make set incomes. Okay, so those are the 3 things that they're going to look at. Okay, so what else was I going to say? Okay, so the average home in Canada has dipped 3.9% since February, which is not crazy huge. It does sound a bit more crazy if you know the average price, which is about $180,000. That makes a difference. $180,000 sounds way bigger than 3.9%. But I'll go over a bunch of stuff with you guys. Okay. So that's since February. But if you bought last year in the fall, the spring, the year before, basically, then it doesn't matter. So the only people that are losing are people that were first-time buyers that bought in January, February, March, etc. Because even if you were not a first-time buyer, and yes, you bought higher than it currently is, you sold higher as well. So you might have sold your house for $700 and now it's only worth $550. So yes, you bought, for a house that's not worth as much as you paid for it. However, you sold for way too high also, right? So unless you're a first-time buyer and you didn't have that benefit of selling high and you just happen to buy high, those are the only people that are slightly screwed at this moment. However, assuming they can hold on to their mortgage and not sell it for a while, it'll still come up anyways. The same thing happened in 2017 where there was a little dip and then it's come up higher. So that is that. One economist said, I'm going to say his exact wording. So he basically said, due to the constant housing shortages, this lull, he called it in quotation marks, will be short-lived. And he did say that a lot of investors are taking advantage of it. And even though they can afford to buy, so let's just say a home is listed at $1 million, they're offering like 800, and they say because of the interest rates, but in reality they can afford the whole amount, but they're just saying that and using that to kind of take advantage of the situation, as other Canadians are more afraid and kind of watching from the sidelines, and they're taking advantage of it because they're more go-getters and they're not afraid. So that's kind of what's going on there. That's that. Hi Janice, hi Steve, can't see the other people. Okay. What else? So larger markets or larger priced homes like Vancouver, Toronto, etc. are expected to see bigger dips this fall than, say, smaller communities. But they are all still expected to recover mid-2023. So Toronto is supposed to go down about 6.3%. Their average sales price, okay? But the number of homes sold is going to go down approximately 35%. So that's when I was speaking about that lady's question before. So they'll probably say down 35%, and it sounds so crazy, which yes, 35% less homes were sold. However, the average price is expected to go down about 6.3 in Toronto, okay? Another luxury area that's supposed to go down a bit, or higher priced home area, is Oakville, but they're not supposed to go down as much. They're supposed to go down about 2%. And that's this fall, by the way. The 6.3% I mentioned was for this fall for Toronto. Muskoka is expected to go down more than Oakville. They're expected to go down about 5% as people start to not work from home as much and people head back to the city. And Vancouver is expected to go down 3% this fall. Okay. But nothing in any of those places is below the beginning of the pandemic. Okay. So March 2020, they're all high above that. So there are some places that are supposed to go up. So Calgary and Edmonton, for example, are supposed to go up. Calgary is supposed to go up 3%. Edmonton is supposed to go up 1.5%. There are also a bunch of places out east that are supposed to go up. Halifax is expected to go up 1.5%. Moncton is 6%. St. John's supposed to go up about 7% this fall. And Charlottetown is supposed to go up about 2%. Okay. So even if, for example, you're living in one of those places that's supposed to go down 3% or 6% or 7%, etc., on average, homes across Canada have gone up over 50% since the beginning of the pandemic. So let's just say your house ends up, even if it goes down 10%, okay, so instead of it going up 50% since the beginning of the pandemic, it went up 40%. That still obviously is a crazy amount and ludicrous. So a lot of economists are saying to not cry about it, because it's not actually as big as a lot of, people are writing in their doom and gloom articles, etc. Okay. In Canada alone, across Canada, not just a certain area, etc., the average home went up 27% in 2021 alone, not counting 2022 or the rest of 2020. Okay. So it was just over 50% altogether. So Canada is not the only one to supposedly to see a slight adjustment this fall. So is Australia and New Zealand. Canada is supposed to see lesser than those two, though. So Australia is supposed to go down 18% this fall and New Zealand 21%. And this is all just predicted by economists. We don't actually know. And this is another random side note. Obviously, you've heard the, term or what have you, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So there is a developer and they have, you see those little kind of trailer things like selling in a subdivision or whatever, and they're basically in a field. So they have ones in Pickering, Whitby, Vaughan, Brampton, and Aurora. And they're currently under investigation because they were selling a bunch of detached homes for $700,000. They're 2,360 square feet. Detached for $700,000, obviously. Brand new in those areas doesn't make any sense. Even in Barrie, that doesn't make any sense. But they got a lot of people to put down 5%, and they told them, oh, it'll be 2.7% interest and blah, blah. And now all these people have spent this money. So if you think of it's over $30,000 times 10 people, $300,000 by 100 people, 3 million. And then there's over thousands. So 30 million or however many thousands of people. So these people have collected all of this money for these homes that are being investigated if they will ever actually be built. So that is not good. So please just make sure you know what you're getting into before you sign something or give a lot of your money or any of your money away, your family's hard-earned money, please and thank you. So there was another recent study, and 73% of Ontarians said that they were prepared to live elsewhere if they couldn't afford their preferred housing in Ontario, which is kind of crazy. 73% again, and 50% of those people said that their municipality is going in the right direction, and 33% said it was going in the wrong direction. The rest said it was either like not applicable or they were, or what was the word? Or was neutral. I don't really know what they mean by their municipality going in the right direction. Does that mean that prices are getting more affordable for young families, or it's kind of vague, so I don't really like that. But anyways, there was the same survey that said 73% of people were willing to leave Ontario if they couldn't find their preferred housing, which was a lot up from a study done earlier in the year. I have to look up, to be honest, my old video because I forget what they said before, but it wasn't that high before. Okay, so that was 8,000 people that were polled. And another thing that they said were 19% said that politicians should worry less about affordable housing and more about the homeless situation and opioids. Okay, so 19% of the 8,000 people surveyed said that people or politicians should worry more about that. If you've heard about the landlord and tenant board in the past, for example, myself, I've taken a number of tenants to court, and you'd usually wait like 3 weeks, 2 months at the absolute most. I never waited more than 2 months. It was usually a month and a half, 3 weeks to a month and a half. Now you're waiting a year to 2. There is not a landlord, lawyer in Toronto that deals with landlord and tenant disputes, and he said he still has some from March of 2022 that he, not 2022, 2020. I'm like, when was the beginning of the pandemic? 2020 that he's dealing with. So that's really frustrating for everyone except those people that are basically not paying any money that whole time. Or it could also be like, we always make it seem like, oh, bad tenants, but sometimes it could be bad landlords not fixing things, or, invading their tenants' privacy or what have you. So it's not always just bad tenants. They are still just doing online for the landlord and tenant board, even though, most things are back face to face and in person, but they're not doing it there. So it is still all online for that, which is pretty frustrating to people. But in April, I did let you guys know that $19 million over the next 3 years has been given to be distributed for basically landlord and tenant board to get basically more people on the phones to answer the calls, because oftentimes you just get a busy number or a busy signal or whatever you want to call it, or you're just on hold so long you hang up. So they are trying to get that better supposedly, and 19 million is going towards that in the next 3 years. So in the past, I've talked about the 1.5 million homes that basically at the last election that the different politicians were saying they were going to implement. Obviously, they are behind on that, but they have said the main 3 areas that they're going to put the homes right now. So Peel, Toronto, and York. So Peel is supposed to get 277,000 of these 1.5 million homes. Toronto is supposed to get 260,000, and York is supposed to get 180,000. Obviously, the rest is divided throughout Ontario, but some of the bigger places, or the places getting more homes, are Ottawa. They're supposed to get 100,000. Waterloo is supposed to get 70,000, as is Simcoe County supposed to get 70,000. Hamilton is supposed to get just over 50,000, and Durham is supposed to get about 90,000. Okay. Next week I will do more locally. I like to sometimes do it like just Toronto, Canada, etc. locally, just so we have a bit of a diverse part for people watching. Next question is from Devin, and Devin is from Barrie. Devin said, my girlfriend and I have sold our home but not purchased yet because we are worried that they may back out. We don't want to be homeless and have nowhere to live, but also don't want them to walk and be stuck paying 2 mortgages. What do you think the likeliness of them walking is? Thank you, Devin, for asking. So it's not very likely, but obviously it's happened before, and I'm sure you've read about it, etc. I would be curious how much of a deposit they put. Did they put 1,000? Did they put 100,000? Did they put 250,000? Did they put 3,000? Obviously, the lesser the deposit, the more chance they may walk, which is obviously not ideal. Also, I don't know if, for example, they bought off you for $1 million and your neighbor just sold for 700 with the identical house. That's not going to be very good for your appraisal. So let's just say they get an appraisal and it appraises at 700, and they're like, cool, we'll give you the money for this, but based off of 700, and you have to come up with the extra 300. I doubt they probably have that. They could get a private mortgage for that amount or part of it, etc. So I just would be curious of how much deposit they put down, and then what's been selling around you lately, if it's a lot down, etc. So those would be my 2 main things, but it's unknown if they'll walk or not. It really doesn't happen a lot, to be honest. I'd say like in 2017, I heard of like 4 cases at the brokerage I was at the time. And this year I've heard of, I'd say 3. So, and there's tens of thousands of transactions that happen all the time. So it's really not a lot. It's not like I hear of 500 a week or anything crazy like that. Okay. Okay. And what's next? So a family from Quebec, they had 4 children, but in the beginning they only had 1. And when their daughter was 3, they know she started to have some like eyesight issues, etc. And they got her checked, and she had some rare genetic disorder, and it's called retinitis pigmentosa, something like that. Basically meaning eventually she will go blind. They did end up having 3 more children, and 3 of the 4 children all have this exact same rare genetic disease. So they thought, instead of just, hey, showing them pictures of vibrant things and what have you before they, lose their sight, to travel the world. So they ended up basically putting everything in storage, and for a year they're going to travel around the world with their 4 children. They just left spring of this year, and so far they've been to Namibia. It's a tongue twister word. Namibia, Zambia, Mongolia, Tanzania, Turkey, Indonesia. I'm sorry for slaughtering that word. But I just like that, obviously, they are, being great for their kids. They are homeschooling their kids. Their youngest doesn't really understand, and he's asked, will I be able to drive when I'm an adult? Because he doesn't understand really what blindness means, because he's the youngest and just a toddler. But in the meantime, they are globetrotting and having a great time and having a different life with their kids and giving them a lot, considering 3 out of 4 of them will be blind. So I just like that story. Next question comes from Joyce in Aurelia. So Joyce in Aurelia said, I have a waterfront home in Aurelia, but it shows best, of course, June, July, and August. Do you think it would be bad to list in October of this year? Thank you, Joyce, for asking. I don't think it would be bad. 1, there's going to be the fall leaves, which I'm sure are very pretty. And 2, maybe, for example, you've lived there for 20 years and maybe somebody wants to, repaint or do the floors or, redo a bathroom or something like that. That gives them time before the summer, as you say, the best time to be at the house, basically, so they could do those things before it's time to enjoy it, so to speak. Or to be honest, people just want to lock in before the interest rates go up again, potentially. So if you wait till next year and say the interest rates have gone up 3 times by then your home value might be worth less. So I don't think it's bad to sell in October, and I wish you the best of luck. Thank you for asking. Next thing is, again, I like happy stories. So youth violence is down. So basically the highest youth violence ever was in 1994, which I was a youth then, and do not think I contributed to that. And they were actually going off of violent crimes, so not just like little petty crimes, but they were going off of like murder, rape, theft, etc. And it is down 78% from that time of 1994, which was the highest ever. Last year, they arrested over 424,000 youth, so they describe that as 17 and under, and that is down 38% from the year before and down more than 50% from 5 years ago. So I like that. In 2010, 14% of all of the violent crimes were done by people under the age of 17, which is crazy, and now it's 6%. So that, not 6%. 7%, sorry, 7%. And then somebody said, I guess asked when they were doing the survey, or I don't really know how it got added in, if adult crime was down. So adult crime is down, but it is down 6%. That's where the 6% came in. So adult crime is down 6%, but the youth crime is down 56% less. So that is really awesome. So you shouldn't give kids such a hard time and think they're up to no good. What else? Question, Cody from Barrie. So Cody from Barrie said, is it possible to get a third mortgage on a property? Cody, thank you for asking. To be honest, I am a real estate broker, not a mortgage broker, and I don't know. I've never heard of a third mortgage, and I would imagine if you got one, it would be super high interest rates and super high fees, and I wouldn't suggest it. I would say if you can't afford it, I would just sell or refinance or get a line of credit or do something. But if you're getting into a third mortgage, I'd say you're not in the greatest of situations. And because interest rates are supposed to go up, etc., I think you could be in hot water quite quickly. So I personally wouldn't do it, even if it's available, but I don't think it is available. Again, unless it's a loan shark with super high interest rates and high fees. But it's not my specialty. So I love a good dog story. There was a German Shepherd, or not was, there is. The German Shepherd is a girl, and she's 10 years old. She's in England, and she lives with a 55 and 91-year-old, and the 55-year-old is actually a police officer. So she has worked with this police officer for 8 years in the service out there. And in that time, she's found 38 people. So she specializes in finding missing people, etc. So 38 people she has found in 8 years, and even a finger, which sounds odd, but she also found a finger that was obviously not attached to a person. And she did just retire, and her owner took her on a vacation, and she was running on the beach and swimming in the ocean, etc. So I just thought it was really cute. And obviously there's a picture of this adorable German Shepherd living her best life. Anyways, that's all. Thank you guys for popping in. If you guys have any questions about our 1% commission listing, feel free to ask for our free trailers or boxes or tape, etc. I hope you are all kind to one another. If I could speak properly, be kind to one another, better yourself every day, and have a super evening.